The morning of our first meeting, I walked into that sterile conference room expecting another rookie prosecutor I could manipulate with experience and charm. Instead, I found her standing by the window, sunlight catching the auburn highlights. In her dark hair, wearing a navy suit that was probably the most expensive thing in her closet, but still looked like it came from a department store. She turned when I entered, and those green eyes hit me like a physical force. Not the calculating stare I was used to from other attorneys, but something deeper. Something that seemed to see right through my carefully constructed armor. "Miss Cole," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Emerson Blake." Her handshake was firm, confident, but I felt her pulse racing against my palm. She was nervous, trying to hide it behind professionalism, but I'd spent years reading people. The slight tremor in her voice when she said my name, the way her eyes lingered on my face a beat too long. She was affected, just like I was. "Counselor Blake," I replied, holding her hand perhaps a moment longer than appropriate. "I've heard good things." That was a lie. I'd heard nothing about her at all, which in my world usually meant someone was either brilliant and flying under the radar or incompetent and not worth gossiping about. Looking at her now, I was betting on the former. The meeting was supposed to be about discovery, about drawing battle lines for the case ahead. Instead, it became a subtle dance of intellect and attraction. She'd present evidence, I'd counter with legal precedent. She'd argue moral obligation, I'd cite constitutional rights. With every exchange, the tension in the room thickened. "Your client stole from cancer patients," she said at one point, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Children with leukemia, elderly people fighting for their lives. How do you sleep at night defending someone like that?" I should have given her my standard response about everyone deserving representation, about the presumption of innocence. Instead, I found myself saying, "I sleep just fine, thanks." But I'm curious, how do you sleep knowing you're trying to put a man in prison based on circumstantial evidence and a vendetta? Her eyes flashed. "A vendetta? Come on, counselor. Your sister died of cancer 3 years ago. Medical bills bankrupted. Your family. This case is personal for you." I regretted the words the moment they left my mouth. I'd done my homework, as always, but bringing up her sister was a low blow even for me. The color drained from her face, and for a moment, I saw past the professional facade to the raw pain underneath. "That's enough," she said quietly, gathering her files. "I'll see you in court, Miss Cole." She walked out without another word, leaving me alone with the uncomfortable realization that I'd just made an enemy of the most intriguing woman I'd met in years. The case dragged on for weeks. Every court appearance was a battle of wills. Emerson fighting with the passion of someone who truly believed in justice. Me countering with the cold precision of someone who'd learned to separate emotion from logic. The press loved it. Young, idealistic prosecutor versus seasoned defense attorney. David versus Goliath with better suits. But something strange was happening. Our professional animosity was beginning to feel less like hatred and more like something else. The way she'd catch my eye across the courtroom and hold it for a beat too long. The way I'd find myself staying late just to see if she was still in the building. The way our arguments became more heated, more personal, as if we were fighting about something entirely different than the case. It all came to a head on a Thursday evening in October. I was leaving the courthouse after a particularly brutal day. Emerson had torn apart my client's alibi with surgical precision, and I'd responded by getting her star witness to admit he'd been drinking the night in question. We'd both drawn blood, and the judge had finally called recess, looking like he wanted to bang our heads together. I was walking to my car when I heard her voice behind me. "Cole, wait." I turned to find her standing under a streetlight, her professional mask finally slipped. She looked exhausted, defeated, and more beautiful than anyone had a right to be. "What is it, Blake?" She took a deep breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I'm always honest. No, you're not. You're careful. You're calculated. You say exactly what you need to say to get what you want. But right now, I need the truth. I stepped closer, close enough to smell her perfume, something light and floral. That didn't match her courtroom persona at all. What's the question? Are you attracted to me? The question hung between us like a loaded gun. I could have deflected, made a joke, pretended I didn't know what she was talking about. Instead, I told her the truth. Yes, she exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath. Good, because I'm attracted to you too, and it's driving me crazy. Emerson, I know it's inappropriate. I know it's probably unethical. I know. We're on opposite sides of a case. And I know you're probably going to win because you're brilliant and ruthless and you don't let emotions get in the way of logic. But I can't stop thinking about you. I stared at her, this woman who'd just confessed to finding me attractive while simultaneously acknowledging I was about to destroy her case. There was something beautifully honest about it, something that cut through all the games and manipulation that define my world. There's a bar 3 blocks from here, I said finally. O'Malley's. Dive bar, terrible lighting, watered down drinks. Meet me there in an hour. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. And Emerson? Don't wear the suit. O'Malley's was exactly what I'd promised, a hole in the wall, with sticky floors and a bartender who'd seen everything and judged nothing. I'd chosen it deliberately, somewhere we were unlikely to run into anyone from our professional lives, somewhere we could be just 2 people instead of opposing counsel. I was already on my 2nd whiskey when she walked in, and I nearly choked on it. Gone was the severe navy suit, replaced by dark jeans that hugged her curves, and a soft gray sweater that made her eyes look like emeralds. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she'd traded her sensible heels for boots that added to her height without making her tower over everyone. She slid into the booth across from me, and I signaled the bartender for another round. I wasn't sure you'd come, I said. I wasn't sure I would either. She accepted the whiskey I offered and took a sip, making a face at the burn. God, that's terrible. The worst. But it's honest terrible, you know? Not pretending to be something it's not. She laughed and the sound went straight to my chest. Is that why you picked this place? Because it's honest? Maybe, or maybe. I just didn't want to risk running into Judge Harrison at the 4 Seasons. Fair point. She took another sip, braver this time. So what do we do now? Now we don't talk about the case. What do we talk about? I leaned back in the booth, studying her face in the dim light. Tell me about your sister. Her expression tightened. I thought we weren't supposed to talk about the case. We're not. I'm asking about your sister, not about how her death motivates your prosecution strategy. She was quiet for a long moment, tracing patterns on the scarred wooden table. Her name was Sarah. She was 2 years younger than me, and she was everything I wasn't. Funny, spontaneous, brave. She'd quit her job to travel through Europe, fall in love with strangers, dye her hair pink just because she felt like it. What happened? Ovarian cancer? Stage 4 by the time they caught it. She fought for 3 years, and I watched her disappear piece by piece. The treatments, the surgeries, the hope that kept getting crushed. By the end, she weighed 90 pounds and couldn't keep food down, but she still made jokes, still tried to take care of everyone else. Emerson's voice was steady, but I could see the tears she was holding back. The medical bills were astronomical. Insurance covered maybe 60%, and that was the good insurance. I sold everything I owned, maxed out every credit card I could get, took out loans against my future earnings. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. I'm sorry, I said. and meant it. She died on a Tuesday. I was holding her hand and she just slipped away. And you know what the worst part was? The bills kept coming. Even after she was gone, they kept demanding payment for the treatments that didn't save her. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. That's why you became a prosecutor. That's why I became a prosecutor who specializes in white-collar crime. Because I know what it's like to be desperate, to need money so badly you'd consider anything. But I also know what it's like to be the victim of someone else's greed. Her hand was warm under mine, and I could feel her pulse racing. "What about you?" she asked. "What's your sad backstory?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nothing nearly as noble as yours. I grew up poor, clawed my way through law school, and decided I'd rather be the one with power than the one getting stepped on. I defend guilty people because guilty people pay better than innocent ones. That's it. That's your whole motivation? That's it. I finished my whiskey and signaled for another. I'm not complicated, Emerson. I'm exactly what I appear to be, a woman who chose money over morality and never looked back. I don't believe that. Why not? Because you're here. Because you asked about Sarah and you listened and you didn't try to use it against me. Because you're buying terrible whiskey in a dive bar instead of manipulating me over champagne at some expensive restaurant. She was giving me too much credit, but I didn't correct her. Instead, I found myself telling her things I'd never told anyone. About the apartment with no heat where I'd grown up. About eating ramen for months to afford law school textbooks. About the first time I'd won a case by destroying a witness's credibility even though I knew he was telling the truth. "Don't you feel guilty?" she asked. I used to. Then I realized guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford. And now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something crack open in my chest. Now I'm not so sure. We stayed at O'Malley's until closing time, talking about everything except the case that had brought us together. I learned that she'd wanted to be a teacher before law school, that she was afraid of spiders but loved horror movies, that she'd never been further from home than Philadelphia. She learned that I'd been married briefly in my 20s, that I collected vintage books but never had time to read them, that I'd grown up wanting to be a ballet dancer until I got too tall. When the bartender finally kicked us out, we stood on the sidewalk outside, suddenly awkward. The professional distance we'd maintained was gone, replaced by something electric and dangerous. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Yes, you should." Neither of us moved. The street was empty except for us, the city quiet in that way it only gets in the small hours of the morning. She was standing close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, close enough that I could smell her perfume mixing with the whiskey on our breath. "This is crazy," she whispered, "completely crazy. We're going to regret this, probably." She reached up and cupped my face in her hands, her thumbs tracing along my cheekbones. "I don't care." I kissed her then, or maybe she kissed me. I'll never be sure who moved first, but suddenly we were pressed together against my car, her hands fisted in my jacket, my fingers tangled in her hair. She tasted like whiskey and something sweeter, like promises I'd forgotten how to make. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "My place," she said against my lips. "It's closer." I should have said no. Should have been the responsible one, the one who remembered we were opposing counsel in a high-profile case. Should have thought about ethics and professional consequences and all the ways this could destroy both our careers. Instead, I said, "Lead the way." Her apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in a converted brownstone, small but warm, filled with books and plants and the kind of comfortable clutter that spoke of a life lived rather than curated. She poured us both wine from a bottle that probably cost less than my usual lunch, and we sat on her couch, the weight of what we were doing settling between us. "I've never done anything like this," she said quietly. "What, brought opposing counsel home? Then with a woman?" I set down my wine glass and turned to face her fully. "Emerson, I know what you're going to say. That this is my first time. That I'm confused. That I don't know what I want. But I do know. I've known since the first time I saw you walk into that conference room like you own the world." "That's not what I was going to say." "What were you going to say?" I took her hand, running my thumb over her knuckles. "I was going to say that I've never felt like this about anyone, man or woman, and it scares the hell out of me." She smiled. Then the first real smile I'd seen from her, and it transformed her entire face. Good. I was starting to think I was the only one terrified. We made love that night with a desperation that surprised us both. There was nothing gentle about it, nothing tentative. It was all heat and hunger and the kind of raw need that comes from wanting something you know you can't have. I mapped every inch of her body with my hands and mouth, memorizing the way she arched beneath me, the sounds she made when I touched her just right. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked. "I don't know." "The case, don't." I pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Not tonight. Tonight, there's no case. There's just us." She lifted her head to look at me, and I saw my own feelings reflected in her eyes, want and fear, and something that might have been love if we'd been different people living different lives. "Stay," she whispered. So I did. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Emerson moving around her kitchen. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, and for a moment I let myself pretend this was normal. That I always woke up in her bed, that we were just two people in love instead of two attorneys who'd crossed every ethical line in the book. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand, and reality came crashing back. 3 missed calls from my assistant, 2 from my client, and a text message that made my blood run cold. Emergency meeting. New evidence in the Hoffman case, 9 a.m. Don't be late. I checked the time. 8:15. Shit, I muttered, throwing off the covers and looking for my clothes. "What's wrong?" Emerson appeared in the doorway, wearing an oversized t-shirt and holding 2 cups of coffee. "I have to go." "Emergency meeting about the case." Her face fell. "The case, right?" I pulled on my clothes from the night before, trying to ignore the way she was looking at me. Like I was already gone, like she'd known this moment would come. "Emerson, it's okay," she said quickly. "I understand." This was ... this was just one night? No, it wasn't. I crossed to her, took the coffee cups from her hands, and set them aside so I could hold her face. This wasn't just one night, not for me. Then what was it? I kissed her, soft and sweet and full of all the things I couldn't say. "I don't know yet, but I want to find out." She nodded, tears threatening. "Go, handle your emergency, but Addison?" "Yeah, be careful." "Whatever this new evidence is, whatever they're planning, be careful." I should have listened to her. Should have heard the warning in her voice, the prosecutor's instinct that something was wrong. Instead, I kissed her one more time and walked out the door, straight into the trap that was waiting for me. The emergency meeting was in my senior partner's office, a room that usually intimidated opposing counsel and junior associates alike. Today it intimidated me, because sitting around the conference table weren't just the usual suspects, my client, my paralegal, the firm's investigator. There was also a man I didn't recognize, expensive suit, dead eyes, the kind of person who solved problems without caring about the legality of his methods. "Addison," my partner, Robert Kellerman, said without preamble. "Sit down. We have a problem." I sat, every instinct screaming danger. "What kind of problem?" Marcus Hoffman, my client, shifted in his chair. The prosecutor's office has been digging deeper into the charity fund. They found irregularities. What kind of irregularities? The stranger leaned forward. The kind that implicate people beyond Mr. Hoffman. The kind that could bring down this entire firm if they're not handled properly. And you are? Someone who solves problems, he said smoothly. Your client has been very helpful in identifying certain opportunities within the charity fund. Money that was already being moved, already being diverted. Money that no one would miss if it disappeared entirely. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? A chance to make this all. Go away, Kellerman said. The prosecution's case depends on financial records that could be adjusted, evidence that could be misfiled, witnesses who could be encouraged to develop memory problems. You're talking about obstruction of justice, witness tampering, bribery. I'm talking about survival, Kellerman snapped. This case goes to trial. They're going to discover that the charity fund was just the beginning. They're going to find the trust accounts, the settlement funds, the campaign contributions. They're going to find everything. The room was spinning. How much are we talking about? 8 figures, the stranger said. Maybe 9. Spread across dozens of accounts, dozens of cases. All perfectly legal when viewed individually, but when you put them together, it's a RICO case, I finished. Exactly, unless we act now. Unless we take control of the situation. I looked around the table at the faces of men who taught me everything I knew about practicing law. I realized I was looking at a criminal conspiracy that had been operating for years. What do you want me to do? Your little prosecutor friend, the stranger said, and my heart stopped. She's the lead on this case. She trusts you. She's also in a vulnerable position, her sister's medical bills, her family's financial situation. She might be amenable to a mutually beneficial arrangement. No. No? I said no. I won't involve Emerson in this. Kellerman's face hardened. You don't have a choice, Addison. You're part of this, whether you like it or not. Your signature is on half these accounts. Your billable hours are tied to the dirty money. You go down with the ship unless you help us plug the leak. And if I refuse? The stranger smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Then you become a liability, and liabilities get handled. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, trying to process what I'd learned. The firm I'd given my life to, the career I'd built, the success I'd achieved, it was all built on a foundation of lies and stolen money. And now they wanted me to drag Emerson down with me. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't think about anything except the choice in front of me. Help them destroy the woman I was falling in love with, or watch them destroy me. By evening, I'd made my decision. I drove to Emerson's apartment, climbed those 4 flights of stairs, and knocked on her door. She answered wearing yoga pants and a paint-stained t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked surprised to see me, but her face lit up with a smile that made my chest ache. Addison, I thought. After this morning, I thought maybe you decided it was a mistake. Can I come in? Of course. She stepped aside, and I walked into her warm, safe apartment, knowing it might be the last time I'd ever be welcome there. I need to tell you something, I said, about the case, about my firm, about why I'm really here. Her smile faded. Okay, I told her everything. About the meeting that morning, about the years of financial manipulation, about the threat hanging over both our heads. I watched her face change as the full scope of it sank in the shock, the betrayal, the dawning realization that I was complicit in everything she'd spent her career fighting against. Jesus Christ, Addison, she whispered when I finished. Do you understand what you're telling me? I understand that I'm confessing to multiple felonies. I understand that I'm handing you enough evidence to destroy my career and probably send me to prison. And I understand that by telling you this, I'm making you a target. Why? Her voice was barely audible. Why are you telling me this? Because I love you. The words hung between us like a bridge neither of us was sure we could cross. She stared at me, her green eyes wide with shock and something that might have been hope. You love me? I love you. And I can't let them use you, can't let them destroy you to save themselves. Even if it means losing you. She was quiet for a long moment, processing everything I told her. Then, what do they want me to do? They want you to throw the case. Make evidence disappear, develop memory problems about key witnesses, find reasons to drop charges. In exchange, they'll make sure your sister's medical bills are paid, that your family's financial problems go away. And if I don't, then they'll destroy both of us. They'll frame you for accepting bribes, plant evidence, make it look like you were part of the conspiracy from the beginning. She sank onto her couch, her head in her hands. This is insane. I know. How long has this been going on? Years, maybe decades. I didn't know Emerson. I swear I didn't know the full extent of it, but you knew something. I sat beside her, careful not to touch her, not sure if I had the right anymore. I knew the billable hours didn't always match. The work. I knew some of the settlements seemed too generous. I knew there were accounts I wasn't supposed to ask about, but I told myself it was just creative accounting, just the way business was done. And now I know the truth. And I know that if we don't do something, they're going to destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses, and walk away clean while you and I take the fall. She looked up at me and I saw the prosecutor and her warring with the woman who'd spent the night in my arms. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we beat them at their own game. We spent the next 3 hours planning our counterattack. Emerson had contacts in the FBI's white-collar crime division, agents who specialized in the kind of conspiracy we were dealing with. I had access to financial records, account numbers, and most importantly, I had a recording device on my phone. It's going to be dangerous, she warned. If they suspect you're wearing a wire, if they figure out what we're doing, I know, you could go into witness protection. Disappear, start over somewhere else? I could, but I won't. Why not? I took her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away, because I'm tired of running from who I am. I'm tired of choosing money over morality, of building my success on other people's suffering. And because I can't start over somewhere else without you. She squeezed my hand. This is going to ruin both our careers. Probably. We'll be lucky if we don't end up in prison ourselves. True. And even if we survive this, even if we manage to take them down, there's no guarantee we'll survive each other. This kind of pressure, this kind of stress, it destroys relationships. I know. She studied my face, looking for doubt or fear or regret. You're sure about this? I'm sure about you, I said. Everything else we'll figure out as we go. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Okay, let's do this. The next morning, I walked into the firm wearing a wire so small I could barely feel it against my skin. The FBI had coached me on what to say, how to get the targets to incriminate themselves, how to stay calm when everything inside me was screaming to run. The meeting was in the same conference room as before, the same players plus a few new faces I didn't recognize. The stranger from yesterday, I'd learned his name was Vincent Torres, and he had connections to money laundering operations across 3 states, was obviously in charge now. Miss Cole, he said as I sat down, I trust you've had time to consider our proposition. I have, and I want to know exactly what you're asking me to do. He smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. Direct. I like that. Very well. We need you to approach Miss Blake with an offer she can't refuse. Her sister's medical bills, all $2.3 million of them paid in full. Her family's mortgage cleared, her student loans forgiven. In exchange, she developed some reasonable doubt about the strength of her case. What kind of reasonable doubt? Chain of custody issues with the financial records, questions about the reliability of key witnesses, perhaps some concern about the admissibility of certain evidence, and if she refuses, then she becomes a problem, and we solve problems. I leaned forward, making sure the wire picked up every word. What does that mean exactly? It means she suffers a tragic accident, car crash maybe, or a mugging gone wrong. These things happen in the city. My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice steady. You're talking about murder. I'm talking about protecting a business that generates hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. One idealistic prosecutor isn't going to bring that down. What about the other prosecutors, the FBI agents working the case? They're following her lead, remove her, and the case falls apart. The evidence gets buried, the witnesses disappear, and life goes back to normal. And my role in all this? You're going to deliver our offer to Miss Blake. Tonight, we've arranged for you to meet her at her apartment, alone. You'll present the offer, she accepted, and everyone wins. And if she doesn't accept? Torres leaned back in his chair, studying me. Then you'll signal us, and we'll handle the situation permanently. You want me to set her up for murder. I want you to give her a choice. Take the money and live, or refuse and die. What she chooses is up to her. I looked around. The room had the faces of people I'd worked with for years, people who'd mentored me, promoted me, trusted me. And I realized that I'd never really known any of them at all. What's my guarantee that you'll honor your end of the bargain? You don't have one, Torres said simply. But you also don't have a choice. Because if you don't deliver Ms. Blake, tonight you'll be the one who suffers that tragic accident. I left the firm that afternoon, knowing I was walking into a trap. The plan was simple. I would meet Emerson at her apartment, present the offer as if I was genuinely trying to save her life, and wait for Torres and his men to arrive. The FBI would be watching, listening, ready to move when they heard the code word we'd agreed on. But as I climbed those familiar stairs to Emerson's apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The building was too quiet. The hallways too empty. When I reached her door, I found it slightly ajar. Emerson? I called softly, pushing it open. She was sitting on her couch, her hands folded in her lap, her face pale but composed. Standing behind her was a man I didn't recognize, his hand resting on her shoulder in a gesture that was clearly meant to be threatening. Miss Cole, Torres said, emerging from the kitchen, right on time. I was just explaining to Miss Blake that her cooperation would be appreciated. Let her go, I said, stepping into the apartment. This is between you and me. Actually, it's between all of us now. He gestured to the man behind Emerson. Ms. Blake has been very helpful in clarifying certain aspects of her investigation. It seems she's been more thorough than we initially thought. My heart sank. What do you mean? She's been working with the FBI, Torres said conversationally. Recording conversations, gathering evidence, building a case that goes far beyond simple embezzlement. Isn't that right, Ms. Blake? Emerson met my eyes, and I saw the apology there. I'm sorry, Addison. I couldn't let them destroy you. When? I asked yesterday, after you left. I called my contact at the bureau, told them everything. They've been monitoring the situation ever since. Torres laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Which brings us to an interesting question. Ms. Cole, are you here as part of Ms. Blake's operation, or are you here to deliver our offer as agreed? I looked at Emerson, at the man standing behind her, at Torres with his dead eyes uneasy. Smile, and I realized that everything we'd planned, everything we'd hoped for, was about to fall apart. "I'm here," I said slowly, "because I love her, and because I'm tired of being afraid." How touching, but not particularly useful. Torres nodded to the man behind Emerson, who tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off your FBI friends, destroy whatever evidence you've gathered, and disappear permanently. In exchange, Miss Blake gets to live. And if I refuse, then you both die. Tonight, here, and your bodies will be discovered in what appears to be a murder-suicide. Tragic love affair gone wrong." I looked at Emerson, saw her slight nod toward the window. The FBI was out there, waiting for the signal. All I had to do was say the code word justice, and they'd move in. But Torres was armed, and so was his associate. By the time the FBI broke down the door, both Emerson and I would be dead. "I need time to think," I said. "You have 30 seconds. I closed my eyes, trying to think of a way out, a way to save both of us. And then I heard it, the faint sound of movement in the hallway, the soft scrape of footsteps on the stairs. The FBI was already moving. "Justice," I said loudly, and threw myself at Torres. What followed was chaos. The door exploded inward as FBI agents poured into the apartment, shouting commands and drawing weapons. Torres's associate released Emerson and reached for his gun, but she was already moving, rolling off the couch and taking cover behind the coffee table. I grappled with Torres, trying to keep him from reaching his weapon. He was stronger than I'd expected, and for a moment I thought he was going to overpower me. Then Emerson appeared beside us, swinging a heavy ceramic lamp that connected with Torres's skull with a sickening crack. He went down, and the fight was over. "Are you okay?" I asked Emerson, pulling her into my arms. "I'm fine. Are you?" "I'm fine." I held her tighter, feeling the tremor in her hands, the rapid beat of her heart against my chest. "It's over." "Is it?" We looked around the apartment at the FBI agent securing the scene, at Torres unconscious on the floor and his associate, already in handcuffs. "It's over," I repeated, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. This was just the beginning. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, grand jury testimony, and media attention. The story broke like a dam bursting, prominent law firm exposed in multi-million-dollar conspiracy, attorney turns whistleblower to save prosecutor girlfriend, love and justice collide in federal corruption case. I testified for 3 days, weighing out everything I knew about the firm's operations, the money laundering, the threats, the attempted murder. Emerson testified too, her voice steady and professional as she described the investigation, the wire recordings, the coordinated effort to bring down what the media had dubbed the most extensive legal corruption scheme in state history. The time it was over, 17 people had been indicted, including all the senior partners at my firm. The law firm itself was dissolved, its assets seized to pay restitution to the victims. And I was unemployed, unemployable, and facing the possibility of prison time myself. "You could have walked away," Emerson said one evening as we sat in her apartment watching the news coverage of another arrest. "At any point, you could have taken their offer and disappeared." "Could I?" I asked. "Could I really have lived with myself knowing what they were doing? Knowing what they wanted to do to you?" She turned to face me, tucking her legs under her on the couch. "A month ago, I would have said yes. I would have said you were exactly the kind of person who'd choose self-preservation over doing the right thing. And now I know better." She reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. "Now I know that you're the kind of person who risks everything for love." I brought her hand to my lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. "Are you disappointed?" "In what?" "In finding out that you're big. Scary defense attorney is actually a softie who throws away her career for a woman she's known for 2 months." She laughed, and the sound filled the apartment with warmth. Addison, I fell in love with you the night you told me about Sarah, when you listened without judgment, when you made me feel like my grief mattered. Everything else, the corruption, the danger, the grand gestures, that was just you proving what I already knew. What did you already know? That you're good. That underneath all the armor and cynicism and professional distance, you're fundamentally good. And that you love me enough to be better than you thought you could be. I kissed her then, slow and deep, tasting the promise of a future I'd never dared imagine. When we broke apart, I rested my forehead against hers. So what happens now? Now we figure out what comes next. What came next was a plea agreement. In exchange for my cooperation and testimony, the federal prosecutor agreed to recommend a suspended sentence and community service. I would lose my law license, pay a substantial fine, and be barred from practicing law in any jurisdiction for 5 years. But I wouldn't go to prison. Emerson wasn't so lucky professionally. The ethics board cleared her of any wrongdoing, but the media attention and the personal relationship with a key witness had compromised her position. She was quietly reassigned to a different division, her career trajectory permanently altered. Do you regret it? I asked one night as we lay in bed, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Which part? Falling in love with opposing counsel, compromising a federal investigation, or getting reassigned to traffic court. All of it. She was quiet for a long moment. Ask me in a year. I'm asking now. She lifted her head to look at me, her green eyes serious in the dim light. No, I don't regret any of it. Do you? No. Even though you lost everything? I considered the question. My career was over, my reputation destroyed, my financial security gone. I was starting over at 42 with nothing but a tarnished name and a complicated love story. I didn't lose everything, I said finally. I lost the things I thought I wanted, but I found something I didn't know I needed. What's that? You, us, the chance to be someone I'm proud of instead of someone I'm ashamed of. She smiled, and I felt something settle in my chest, something I'd been carrying for years without realizing it. The weight of compromise, of moral flexibility, of choosing the easy path over the right one. It was gone, replaced by something lighter and stronger. I love you, she said. I love you too, even if we're both unemployed. Even if we're both unemployed. She kissed me, and we made love with the desperate tenderness of people who found each other in the wreckage of their old lives and were determined to build something better from the pieces. I found work at a nonprofit legal clinic, helping low-income families navigate the court system. The pay was terrible, the hours were long, and the clients were often more interested in venting their frustrations than following legal advice. It was the most rewarding work I'd ever done. Emerson had transferred to the Attorney General's office, where she was building a reputation as a skilled advocate for consumer protection. She was happier than I'd ever seen her, energized by work that aligned with her values instead of compromising them. We moved in together after 3 months, combining her books with my vintage collection, her plants with my minimalist aesthetic. The apartment was small but filled with light, and for the first time in my adult life, I looked forward to coming home. I have something to tell you, she said one evening as we cooked dinner together. She was making her grandmother's pasta sauce, and I was attempting to follow her instructions for garlic bread without burning it. Good something or bad something, different something. I looked up from the bread, noting the nervous energy in her movements. Okay, I got a job offer in Portland. Environmental law, working with indigenous communities fighting pipeline development. It's everything I've ever wanted professionally. My heart sank. That's wonderful, is it? Of course it is. You deserve to have everything you've ever wanted. She turned off the stove and faced me fully. What about what we've built here? What about us? We'll figure it out. Long distance, visits, whatever it takes. Or, she said carefully, you could come with me. I stared at her, the garlic bread. Forgotten? Come with you? There's a legal aid clinic in Portland that needs experienced attorneys. The pay's even worse than what you're making now, but the work is similar. And Portland has great coffee. Emerson ... I know it's a lot to ask. I know you're just getting established here, building relationships with clients and colleagues. But I can't imagine doing this without you. I don't want to imagine it. I set down the bread and crossed to her, taking her face in my hands. You're asking me to move across the country with you? I'm asking you to take a leap of faith with me, to trust that whatever we build together will be better than what we leave behind. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. When do we leave? Really? Really? I told you once that I was sure about you. Everything else we'll figure out as we go. She threw her arms around me and I spun her around the kitchen, both of us laughing like teenagers. The pasta sauce was burning, the garlic bread was definitely inedible, and we were about to uproot our entire lives for the second time in a year. I'd never been happier. We got married on a Tuesday in November and a small ceremony at the Portland courthouse. The guest list was Tiny Emerson's parents, a few friends from our respective offices, and Judge Patricia Reeves, who'd agreed to officiate despite having presided over our professional destruction 18 months earlier. I have to ask, Judge Reeves said as we stood in her chambers, are you sure about this? Marriage is hard enough without starting with the kind of baggage you two are carrying. What kind of baggage? Emerson asked. The kind that comes from building a relationship on the foundation of a federal criminal investigation. The kind that comes from choosing each other over your careers, your security, your carefully planned lives. The kind that comes from falling in love with someone who's seen you at your absolute worst and loved you anyway. I looked at Emerson, beautiful in a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she held the small bouquet of wildflowers we'd picked up at the farmer's market that morning. Judge, I said, that's not baggage. That's proof that we can survive anything, and if you can't, then we'll fail spectacularly and have an amazing story to tell. Judge Reeves laughed. Fair enough, let's get you married. The ceremony was simple, traditional, and perfect. When it came time for vows, we'd written our own. Emerson, I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. 1.5 years ago, I thought I knew what I wanted from life. Success, money, respect, security. I thought those things would make me happy. I was wrong. You make me happy. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe that love is worth any risk, any sacrifice, any leap of faith. I promise to love you, to choose you, to build a life with you that's worthy of the woman you are. Addison, she said, tears streaming down her face, you saved my life. Not just from the physical danger, but from the cynicism that was eating me alive. You showed me that people can change, that love can conquer fear, that sometimes the most reckless thing you can do is also the most right. I promise to love you, to challenge you, to stand by you through whatever comes next. Do you, Addison Cole, take this woman to be your wife? I do. Do you, Emerson Blake, take this woman to be your wife? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, I pronounce you married. You may kiss your bride. I kissed her hard, pouring everything I felt into that single moment. When we broke apart, the small crowd was applauding, and Judge Reeves was smiling. Congratulations, she said. And good luck. You're going to need it. I'm sitting in our garden, watching Emerson chase our 3-year-old daughter around the apple tree we planted when we bought this house. Maya has her mother's green eyes and stubborn streak, and my height and tendency to ask uncomfortable questions. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Mama Addie. She calls, running toward me with her arms outstretched. Mama Emmy says dinner. I scoop her up, spinning her around until she giggles. Did she now? And what are we having for dinner? Spaghetti. Again? I like spaghetti. I know you do, baby. Emerson joins us, grass stains on her jeans and Maya's hair ribbon in her hand. She's impossible, she says, but she's smiling. She gets that from you. She gets that from both of us. We walk toward the house together, Maya chattering about her day at preschool, Emerson's hand in mine. The house is small but perfect, filled with books and plants and the comfortable chaos of a family that's been built from scratch. I got a call today, Emerson says as we reach the porch. From the Times, they want to do a follow-up story on the corruption case. 5 years later, where are we now? What have we learned? That sort of thing. And I said no. Good. Really? You don't think we should tell our story? I consider it, watching Maya attempt to climb the porch railing. I think we're living our story. The rest is just noise. Even if it might help other people, other couples facing similar situations, what would we tell them? That love conquers all, that doing the right thing always works out, that sacrificing everything for each other guarantees a happy ending. What would we tell them? I pull her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. We tell them that love is worth the risk, that sometimes the most reckless thing you can do is also the most right, that building a life together is messier and harder and more beautiful than anything you can imagine. And that sometimes, she adds, love really is a little illegal. Sometimes Maya tugs on my jeans. Mama Addie, why are you and Mama Emmy being mushy? Because we love each other, baby. Gross. You won't think it's gross when you're older? Yes, I will. Emerson laughs, and the sound fills the air around us. Come on, let's go eat spaghetti before it gets cold. As we walk into the house, I catch my reflection in the window. I look older, softer somehow, but also more solid, more real. This is who I was meant to be all along, not the woman in the expensive suits fighting for guilty clients, but the woman who chose love over fear, who chose to build something meaningful instead of just something successful. Hey, Emerson says, catching my hand as Maya runs ahead to the kitchen. No regrets. None. Even though we're still paying off law school loans and our house is held together with duct tape and prayer. Even though we're probably going to be broke forever. Even though some people still think we're crazy. I kiss her soft and sweet and full of 5 years of shared mornings and quiet evenings, and the kind of love that grows stronger with every challenge it faces. Especially because of that. She smiles, and I see our future in her eyes, more adventures, more challenges, more moments of perfect happiness stolen from an imperfect world. We'll make mistakes, we'll struggle, we'll probably fight about money and parenting and whose turn it is to do the dishes. But we'll do it together, and that makes all the difference. Come on, she says, tugging my hand. Our daughter is about to dump marinara sauce all over the kitchen. Our daughter? Fine. Your daughter? She definitely gets the messy eating from your side of the family. I follow her into the kitchen, where Maya is indeed attempting to serve herself spaghetti with predictably disastrous results. This is my life now: domestic chaos, financial uncertainty, and the kind of deep, abiding happiness I never knew existed. Was it reckless? Absolutely. But love, real love, the kind that changes you, the kind that makes you brave, love's always a little illegal. And sometimes that's exactly what makes it worth everything.